Hey friend, in this video, I'm going to be giving you a simple practice to help you become more creative. Before I get to what the practice is, let's talk about why we would even want to be more creative. Obviously, you're on this video, or maybe not, but obviously you're on this video because you want to learn something related to watercolor or art or creativity. I am a watercolorist. I have been an artist my entire life. My mom is extremely creative and was a painter, and we grew up painting, exploring photography and dance, and I took piano at an early age, and I'm a singer, all these things. I was exposed to creativity on a daily basis because my mom was creatively just obsessed with all things creative. So very, very highly creative household that I grew up in. And my dad is also very creative, but he was working a lot, all these things. So anyways, creativity is something that I use in every aspect of my life, not obviously just my painting practice or my music practice or whatever, but in my business and my relationships, because at the core, the fundamentals or the principles of creativity are resilience, connecting the dots, becoming better at noticing things. So you could be a better noticer in conversation. You could be a better noticer of the natural world around you. There's so many ways that we can improve our daily lives through these creative principles. And so becoming more creative in your daily life and having a practice that helps you do that, I think is extremely important. It improves your relationships, conversationally, communications. It improves your business, how you lead, all these things. And also just improves your art practice, your photography practice, your music practice, whatever. So in this video, we're gonna be talking about a simple practice I've been doing for most of my life without actually knowing what it was doing. I have been doing it. We're gonna just talk about it right now. And that is sketching trees. It might not be mind-blowing. It might not seem like it should be the answer, but trees. I have had this weird fascination with trees my whole life. Most of all my moleskin journals, when I was in college, I would always write in these moleskin journals, which are those brown blank cover, blank pages on the inside journals. And I would always cover them in a big tree, and I would make a cursive phrase or word or theme that I wanted that journal to be about inside the branches. So it looked like branches, but it was also lettering. It was very 2007. And so I remember one very distinctly in college that said live free, which is a theme that I still have to this day, is live free in the little branches. So anyways, I was always doodling trees. I was always looking at trees, studying them, and just drawing them. And so in this practice, you're just gonna be using a sketchbook and a pencil. And you're gonna be practicing analyzing a subject, one subject, not something complicated, one subject, and grasping its basic shapes. And so with trees, most of the time, you are looking at circles or oval shapes. And so I'm breaking down that process in today's video, but trees are the perfect subject. If you really struggle at looking at something and understanding how to break it down into basic shapes, trees are the best practice for that because they come in a cone shape, they come in oval shapes, in skinny teardrop shapes, cylindrical shapes. There's so many different types of trees that you could just have a field day of studying basic shapes and how they manifest in a subject over and over again with just trees. So let's dive into today's video. Get out your pencil, get out your sketchbook or your scrap paper, and let's get into it. So one of my all-time favorite practices that I truly believe has helped me become more creative on a daily basis is sketching trees. So just going outside for 5 to 15 minutes, finding a tree, or going to a park, finding a tree. If you don't have nature nearby, obviously there's images online, but I always prefer the actual physical in nature event. To help you become and train more that eye of becoming a noticer and becoming more creative. I've been sketching, doodling trees since I was tiny. I just love analyzing the shapes of trees. I feel like it's a really great practice for training your eye to look for basic shapes, but then also stripping something down into that basic shape and understanding how to shade it. So even if you're a watercolorist or an oil painter or whatever, sketching and doing a sketch study of the shape first is where I always find where you understand what values to put in for your light and darks when you're painting, and also just understanding how to create that form. So if you're wanting to step away from tutorials, I know this is a tutorial itself, but something that you can do every single day is just sketching one tree, and it really does wonders for your motor skills and also training your eyes to find basic shapes. So to start, here's a little sneak peek of my sketchbook, but to start, let's do a simple practice that you can do every single day. And if you're unfamiliar with sketching or painting trees from basic shapes, I also have an entire series on trees that you should go check out that will link in this video as well. But all I want you to do is start with a circle. I have a 2H pencil, but any pencil will do. An HB pencil, a number 2 American standard pencil, doesn't matter. And all you're gonna do is sketch a circle. So to get a somewhat perfect circle, you got to do this light, stabilized with the wrist resting on the paper and just kind of gliding. I'm not using my fingers to sketch the circle. That's going to make it wobbly. I'm using my arm to sketch the circle, and I'm going over and over until I start to see that defined outline of my circle. Once I have my circle, let's just talk about light source and how to shade a sphere. So don't think about trees just yet. Just think about a ball or a sphere. So if I have this ball sitting on a table and we've got a light source hitting it on the top right, let's say the sun or some sort of light source is on this top right angle, the first thing I want you to do is to make an olive. So you're taking where that sunlight or that light source would be hitting this ball, and you're creating that opening of an olive. Right here is where you're gonna have your most prominent highlight on your sphere, on your ball. And then from there, we'll have these bigger ovals kind of cut out for our shadows, midtones, and we're simplifying this. We're not gonna get into core shadow, we're not gonna get into cast shadow or any of that stuff that can get really, really complicated. If you want to master sketching, there's plenty of people out there that teach and will help you master sketching and all of those fundamental techniques. But I find when you're just wanting to get more creative and you're wanting to just be able to look at something and draw it and simplify it and sketch it in your sketchbook or then just paint it, just keep it simple, okay? So here's our sun, our light source, whatever. It's hitting at this angle, it's not coming straight down, it's not over on the side, so this is where the opening of our olive would be. This is where it's our lightest value. And here, in this little quarter moon shape, is going to be our shadows. So I can crosshatch or I can draw darker lines in this section just to make it more in shadow, and then we could have our midtones, which would be slightly lighter and then highlight. So I'm actually going to switch to an HB pencil so you can see my lines better. So down here, this is where our shadows would be, and then we would get softer and lighter as we creep up closer to this highlight. But as you can see, these are all curves because we're on a sphere. So we have the shadow isn't just straight right here and it stops right here. It's curved, like this is a little moon shape, and it's showing that curve or that dimension, that roundness of the sphere. Understanding how a ball or a spherical shape interacts with light and shadow is incredibly important for drawing absolutely everything on planet Earth, especially trees. So if I were to take, for example, some sort of, I'm really bad with tree names, but let's just say this is like a aspen tree. You know what? I'm just gonna Google and make sure I'm in the right direction. Yeah, that's in a similar direction of what I was thinking. But you know, a tree where it doesn't look like it's a outright circular shaped tree. Well, break it down into sections, because most of your sections on your trees, even if they don't look like it, are going to be somewhat circular or maybe oval shaped. So we've got our little trunky trunk, and then these little sections of leaves are more spherical shaped, but they're broken up. So the overall shape of the whole tree isn't a sphere, but maybe there's clusters of branches with shoot-offs that have that spherical or even oval shape. So if your light source is up here to the right or a little bit higher, then you're gonna find where the olive would be. So on this one, it would be over here. These one would be more in shadow because the sun is probably not hitting it, you know, because you got other ones up in here. So this whole side is gonna be more in the light. We'll have a little glimpse of light up here, and this one's gonna be really in shadow. So from there, once you have your basic shapes or your circle clumps, then you can add your contour. Your contour is a mixture depending on the tree and what you want it to look like. Like for example, if I'm painting a tree with really tight together, you know, short leaves, then I'm just gonna do combinations of these little scribbles like this, literally just tight little scribbles. But you wanna make sure that it's random and it's not super uniform and it doesn't look the same all the way throughout the tree. So I'm gonna go around the tree, or if I want like a palm tree, I'll do bigger, longer C-curve strokes that always point back to the main stem or branch or trunk, always pointing back. So depending on the type of tree that you're sketching, you'll have different varieties of scribbles. So then once I have my circles down, lightly sketched, and I have an idea of where my branches are going and my trunk and all that, then I can go in and I can scribble in that contour. So I'm just kind of just doing the outline. I'm not even going into the circle at all, and I'm just going in and creating these random, yes, I'm following the circle, but to keep it more organic and looking natural, don't follow the outline exactly. Make it a little fluffy, make it, you know, big leaves poking out here and there. Having breaks in your lines too, so you can put in some more branches or something like that to break it up. And then you have your main outline of your tree, and it was super simple to get there. We just start with a circle, and then you add a few different combinations of scribbles. But now to really make this pop off your page and make it feel like a really fun, detailed sketch, we're now just gonna go in and find the light source and shade circular shapes. So how you would shade a ball is how you would shade your tree. Obviously we have overlapping circular shapes, so not everything is gonna be, you know, having this olive shape or having this highlight, but you don't have to be perfect. Most people fuss on getting the technique exactly perfect, but this is going in your sketchbook. This is just an exercise to help you become more creative. So I love just taking my pencil, choking up a little bit higher up on my pencil so I can use more of that flicking motion to get my hatching lines straight. And I'm just gonna add in some shadow to the base curve of these balls, these ball shapes, these little clusters of leaves. And remember, it's a half moon shape, it's not straight across, so you wanna taper up the sides a little bit to show that round, fluffiness of your tree. And I'm just going in with these angled lines. Try and keep your lines parallel and somewhat the same angle. It doesn't have to be perfect. Again, structure is really helpful for allowing creativity to play, and without structure, it's chaos. But too much structure will keep you up in your head, and you will always be over analyzing and over picking apart what you're doing and never able to just freely flow with the pencil. So just allow yourself to play with it. And these little tweaks, like keeping your lines parallel, or at least trying to keep them mostly parallel, is something that will just immediately clean up your sketch and make it look a lot more precise. And you can erase all your guidelines, your little marks for your olive. And obviously this wouldn't be exactly what you see in nature, so we want to continue to bring it up. Yes, we still got a little round line. Continue to bring it up and slowly taper it. Get more spaced apart as you shade to show midtones. Shadows are more dense and maybe cross hatching instead of just one direction for your lines, just hatching. And then as you creep up, you're getting lighter and lighter with your lines, or just one angle of line instead of cross hatching, totally up to you. If you want to learn more about shading techniques and getting better at analyzing basic shapes and sketching and all of that, there's a huge amount of deep dive in my course, The Art Within. So if you really want to get down to the nitty gritty on shading and all the 9 different types of shading techniques, I cover it inside The Art Within. But for now, we're just simplifying what we're seeing so that we can become more creative every single day and not always be stuck in tutorial land. There's absolutely nothing wrong with tutorials. Obviously, I teach them for a living. But it is really, really helpful if you're able to just be creative on your own. So training and developing your eye for noticing things and seeing what they're like in nature, there are really some basic principles like understanding basic shapes and understanding how to shade balls, how to understand how light hits a subject and where the cast shadow is, where the core shadow, and all of that. And along with that, because we're doing trees, trunks are cylinders. So if you're wanting to also, this is the worst cylinder I've ever drawn, but if you're wanting to understand how to shade a cylinder, or it's picture a tube or like a tube of macaroni pasta. It's a round surface. So I follow, with my shading lines, I follow the curve of the opening of a cylinder or the bottom, opening of the cylinder. So picture a can of beans or a can of chili or something like that. And instead of going down the surface like this, I'm going to go on this from the side and curve in the same direction, or at least really close, as the curve of the openings of your cylinder. So I'll take that left side because, again, the right side is where our light source is. Again, we're just simplifying it. We're not overcomplicating it. So I'm not talking about, where I would place all the shadow and all of that. I'm just making it as simple as possible. And I'm curving slightly to match this curve of my cylinder as I work my way up the tree. And I'll take the branches and do the same as well. And just save it for the left side. You can go back over it and add more marks if you want it to feel more in shadow. And darken that shadow if you want to by pressing harder or adding in more lines, like so. And all the way up those branches. And it only took me a few minutes to sketch this tree. All you need is 5 to 15 minutes of going outside, finding something nature. I recommend starting with trees because if you're going for something with flowers, they're going to be all these different shapes corresponding in one subject. So if you're going for a subject and you just want to train your eye to be more creative every single day and to analyze things from their basic shapes and using more of your own visualization instead of having to go and get the inspiration from somewhere online like a tutorial, go outside, find a tree, start with its overall shape. So if it's a cypress tree, we have more of this oval, pointed oval shape, like a little teardrop. So instead of starting with something that seems like more of a circular shape, you'll actually have this kind of pointed oval shape. But also if you look closely at cypress trees, they have all of these little branch offshoot things that follow this shape of the oval. So I just like to do these ovals that all point back to where the trunk is because these branches would all be growing off of that trunk. And that is where I'm placing my little leaf clusters. And instead of shading a more perfect circle sphere shape, it's an oval. Same idea will apply. You'll have your olive, you'll have your core shadow, all that kind of stuff. But it'll just be a slightly more elongated shape. So then I'll go in and add my little leaf shapes like so, like I did over here. And this is just really rough. I'm not getting perfect analysis of where these leaves are placed. I'm just looking at something and sketching it. I'm not trying to place everything like exactly how far down on the trunk it comes for these leaves. So I obviously did these shapes of the outline of the cypress tree much quicker. But just so you get the idea, all you need to do is find the olive point first, or the opening of the olive first. If the sun is over here, let's say, and we're keeping this very simple. I know I'm going to get comments from people who are very technical, who have maybe gone to art school, all this stuff. I don't do that. I don't try to perfect my technique. I am just trying to be more creative every single day, and getting the grasp or the essence of what I'm sketching or painting, etc., is how I know I can manage my own creative practice. If I ever get to a point where I have the time and desire to get really intensely technical, and listen, I've studied this for over 11 years. I can get pretty technical and pretty, into the weeds on certain art techniques and principles and all this stuff, and I even teach it. But I know that there's going to be so many more people out there who have literally been studying it for decades upon decades, and I just try to oversimplify things, especially when I'm teaching. Most of the people on this channel are beginners, and so I don't like to overwhelm, especially beginners, with all of this information about sketching and shading and finding the light source, the core shadow, all this stuff, because at the end of the day, what are your goals with your creative practice? What are your goals with your art practice? Are you trying to become more creative? Well, you need to find the balance for you and your skill level that will allow you to not just be able to think about what to do next, but also to feel what to do next when you're sketching, and how to look at something and sketch it quickly is going to be different if you're sitting there and doing something in a photorealistic style, analyzing exactly each leaf placement and how the light is hitting it and catching it. It's going to be a very different practice. So if you want to inject more creativity into your daily life, maybe you're new to art or just picking it back up after a few years of it being dormant, or you're not new to art and you're just like feeling stuck and stagnant in your art practice, sketch trees. Sketch 1 to 3 trees every single day. It's something that I've done all throughout my life. Throughout school, I was always doodling. One of my go-to doodles was trees. I was constantly doodling trees outside of windows or from my imagination, etc. And that's why I think that now, today, I have such a good grasp on how basic shapes work, because they are a great subject to study basic shapes. You can have more short and stout shapes. You can have cone-shaped trees. You can have teardrop-shaped trees and ovals. And so to really understand how creativity works, to use your brain in a way that's more visual and connecting the dots and becoming the artist of your life and noticing things more, slowing down to notice the basic shapes in a subject like a tree first, it's going to require taking 5 to 15 minutes. You don't need fancy supplies. You can have a number 2 pencil and a little sketchbook, or even the back of your watercolor paper, or even a napkin, probably not with a pencil, maybe a little pen or something. And doing that 5 to 15 minutes a day, you're going to become better at noticing shapes. You're going to get better at your sketching techniques. You're also just going to train your muscle memory and motor skills for other mediums, for watercolor, for holding brushes, all this stuff. So that is my go-to 5 to 15 minute creative practice every single day, a way to inject more creativity into your daily life, whether you're an artist or not, because it is important and it does help you become more creative and more impactful in every aspect of your life. So go enjoy your sketching of trees. There you have it. Thanks so much for watching. I hope that was helpful and insightful for you in understanding how to break down a subject into its basic shapes. Obviously, we're not getting extremely technical in our shading techniques and all of that. That's what my course, The Art Within, is for. We are currently under construction. The Art Within has a wait list open right now, but we are relaunching it in August 2024 with brand new lessons and updates and very fun stuff in there. So make sure you check it out once it's re-released. It's amazing. And then also, if you need a free ebook that maybe you're just getting started with watercolor, you need a little bit more of that information on techniques and all the beginner stuff like finding supplies, all of that, make sure you check out The Complete Beginner's Guide to Watercolor. It's a free 40-page ebook. I'll link to it in this video. And as always, thank you so much for watching these videos, for commenting, liking, and subscribing to my channel. It means the world to us, and I'll see you in the next video.